Okay, so here's a certain type of sampling we need to know about for the exam, and that's called stratified sampling. Stratified sampling splits the population into lots of groups. So one example is that we might split the population by age group. So often, if we're doing sampling from people in the UK again, maybe we might split them up into different age categories. So we might sample people 18 to 25, and then 25 to 30, people in their 30s, people in their 40s. So we split them all up into groups, and then we choose a random sample from within those groups. The idea of this is to make sure that our sample is representative of the population. For instance, if I go and do a survey and stand outside a school or a university, chances are most of the people I survey are all going to be about the same age. They're all going to be, if I was at a university, they're all going to be between sort of 18 and 23 probably. And that's not representative at all of the population. It's something we want to avoid. So to stop this kind of thing happening, we split everyone into groups, depending on, it doesn't have to be age, it can be anything. Age is just an example. If we split everyone into those groups, we can make sure we pick a representative number from each age group, and then we get a representative sample. Now, quota sampling is very similar to stratified sampling, but it's important to understand the differences. Again, we're going to split the population into groups, but this time the sample we pick from the groups is not going to be random. Okay, now you might have heard of a quota before. It's when we meet a certain amount of things, we stop. When we get to a certain number, we stop. The quota's been filled. So we might get told we need to survey 200 people between the age of 25 to 30, or maybe we need to survey 1,000 people who work in a school, or something like that. So while we are effectively splitting the population into groups by demanding that they exist in a certain group, in a certain age category, or with a certain job, or whatever it is, once we have those people, we don't select randomly from that group. We just say we'll pick basically the first people we find. Often that can make it easier to do than a stratified sample, where you have to be random when you pick out of the group you're interested in, or the groups you're interested in. Again, we're trying to make the sample more representative of the population, but because we don't pick randomly from those groups, we could end up with biased results. Again, we could have the same issue as I've talked about previously, where we only get answers from the people who are willing to be surveyed. So that can bring in bias, where you just talk to less busy people, or people who are more willing to respond to a survey, or people who are maybe have internet access to do the survey, or things like this. So we have to be careful, because quota sampling can introduce bias, where the stratified sampling in theory should be free of any bias. There's some benefits here. It's normally cheaper and easier to do than stratified sampling is, because we've been less strict about how we perform the sample.